Family's everything.
Gene may have been estranged from each of his kids at some point.
Betsy's will says that if Jean is alive, her property assets go to him.
His two daughters, seen in California the day after news of his death broke, told ET they were devastated by the loss.
I, unfortunately, was off doing what I thought was important work, early on when my kids really needed me.
Meanwhile, brother Christopher is working with a prominent lawyer.
Jean survived her by about a week. However, in Betsy's will, it says, in order to survive me, it has to be longer than 90 days.
Okay, so I'm excited because this is what I was waiting for. This exactly is what I was waiting for. When I was keeping up the Gene Hackman thing, I was waiting for this conversation. Gene Hackman left fortune to deceased wife, nothing for kids. I was waiting for that. I wanted to see if there was money going to be, if money was going to become involved some way, somehow in this whole fiasco. And here it is. We got to start looking into the will and we got to start looking into money. Here it is. I think this says something to the effect that the man was worth $80 million. He has to be because the house is so nice. I know it's in New Mexico, and I don't think that the prices in New Mexico are about the same or even remotely close to Hollywood, so you can get more for less. But still, $80 million or however much he's worth, I don't know. I don't really know the guy like that. I've seen him in movies, but for however much he's worth, he's got to have had like a caretaker or something or what have you. So I want to start off with, and this article came across this morning, so I want to start off with it. So it says, Gene Hackman left fortune to deceased wife, nothing for kids. I was asking about this because I wanted to understand more about why the health records were sitting on the counter. It's like, why are the health records sitting on the counter? Okay. So this is by TMZ staff. This is Friday, March 14, 2025. Let's just start with this.
So sad. Well, Gene Hackman's death, Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy, the circumstances of their death, obviously so sad. But it is about to get
contentious,
pretty contentious because of the terms of Gene Hackman's will.
And Betsy's will.
And who gets his fortune. Because, just to refresh, to remind everyone, what the authorities said there in New Mexico is that Betsy died, they believe Betsy died first from hantavirus, a respiratory disease, and that Gene, some days later, died and was walking around the house. We didn't know this, but that he had severe dementia that he was suffering.
And heart issues.
And
he died.
And died several days later.
So from all accounts, Betsy died first. This is highly relevant. So here's the deal. Gene's will leaves everything to his wife, Betsy. And he did not leave anything to his 3 children. It all goes to Betsy. Betsy's will is a little more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Betsy leaves some of her stuff to her mom, who is still alive,
right,
but everything else goes to Gene. However, there is a provision in her will that says, and now look, without the provision, since Gene died first, all of his money...
No. Betsy died first.
Excuse me, since Betsy died first, you would think then, with the exception of that stuff, all of her money
would go
into Gene,
right,
and then when Gene dies, all of that goes where? Because Gene did not leave anything else to anybody other than Betsy.
Right.
But Betsy had a specific clause saying that if they died within 90 days of each other, it's as if they had a simultaneous death. And if they had a simultaneous death, all of her money would go to charity.
So that means...
That was a really good lawyer. And they did, in fact, what are the odds that they did, in fact, die simultaneously, essentially, within the 90 days? Man, couldn't have written a better script.
Means all of, oh boy, wow.
It's really like being back in law school. This is like
It
a
is.
trust and estates kind
It
of
is so
question.
much.
The determination was that she predeceased him because of her hantavirus progressing to such a state that she
Right.
died before him.
I noticed TMZ, they tend to favor lawyers a little bit.
And we don't know the exact time period, but maybe a week. His kind
It
of
is so
question.
much.
The determination was that she predeceased him because of her hantavirus progressing to such a state that she
Right.
died before him. We don't know the exact time period, but maybe a week. His will is fascinating because he was worth maybe $80 million, according to reports. He has a 2-page will that just leaves everything to Betsy, as you said, but doesn't specifically disinherit his children. And now his son has a lawyer and says he may challenge that will because there's no specific disinheritance. Obviously, Gene's money can't go to Betsy because she predeceased him.
But you know
So
who
it
it
could be
goes
like
to?
dying
It's-
intestate.
But it's going to go, which means it goes to the 3 children
Which
that
is
Gene
exactly
excluded.
right. It may not have been what Gene wanted, though, because Gene only left it to Betsy, but without the specific disinheritance, his kids, who
So-
he may not want the money left to,
And what
may end
he,
up getting it.
What he could have done was to say, and if Betsy predeceases me, then my
it would
money
go
goes to charity or whatever. But he didn't have that clause in. So because you don't know where it goes, the law that it's called intestate succession, means as if you died without a will, then it goes to his immediate heirs. The immediate heirs are the 3 children he didn't mention in the will.
Right.
If you have ever in any way worked in this area surrounding deaths, right? Surrounding the death of family members. Oh man, you know it gets messy, and I mean messy legally. You would be surprised, and I know you know, at the thunderstorm, it's the best way I can describe it, of people coming out the woodwork. Oh, I want mama buried in this. I want mama buried in this. Oh, I don't want, mama would have never done this. And it's like we just have all different kinds of interpretations on mom or dad or the son or what have you, or aunts and uncles. You know, it gets really, really testy around this stuff. You know, I used to work for a company that sort of managed benefits, and you know, people would call up, and sometimes you would have people call up from one side of the fence, a wife, you know, and then an ex spouse or ex-wife or something like that, and then the current wife, and they would be fighting over the benefit, the death benefit. And oh, it's mine because look, and you'd have to go look who was on the beneficiary sheet and be like, well, man, this is the last one on file. Yeah, but that's from 30 years ago. This is all we got that's on file. I could show you whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's tough. I knew this was coming. And so this is why we have to think about the possibility of other things. That's why we can't close this just yet. You know, I understand with the hantavirus and all this and that and the third, but I'm stuck on this idea, and I'll tell you where my motivation's coming from. I'm stuck on this idea. There was a case in Tyler, Texas, and you may have seen this before. In 2021, Texas nurse convicted of killing 4 men with air injections. Written by the AP. Charged with capital murder, William George Davis listens to closing arguments in court on October 19, 2021 in Tyler, Texas, as he stands trial for the death of 4 patients at Christus Trinity Mother Frances Hospital in Tyler in 2017 and 2018. Texas nurse was convicted Tuesday of capital murder in the deaths of 4 patients who died after prosecutors say he injected them with air following heart surgeries. Simple air. The Smith County jury deliberated for about an hour before finding William George Davis of Hallsville guilty of capital murder involving multiple victims, Prosecutors planned to seek the death penalty during the sentencing phase, which was scheduled to start Wednesday. Davis, 37, was accused of injecting air into the four patients' arteries after they underwent heart surgery at the Christus Trinity Mother Frances Hospital in Tyler in 2017 and 2018. During recovery from their surgeries, the four, John Lafferty, Ronald Clark, Christopher Greenway, and Joseph Kalina, suffered unexplained neurological problems and died. Man, I remember seeing this story. So I was just like, man, this is crazy. During the trial, Dr. William Yarborough, a Dallas area pulmonologist and professor of internal medicine, explained to the jury how injecting air into the arterial system of the brain causes brain injury and death. Yarborough said he was able to determine there was air in the arterial system of the victims' brains by viewing images from brain scans, something he said he had never before observed in his decades in medicine. Yes. This is what I'm saying. The weird stuff that people figure out to do. This man has been in medicine for years and said, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen people do stuff like this. But you never know how people's minds work. That's what I'm saying with this hantavirus thing. You know, I understand you inhale it or what have you, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, yo, can it be bottled up in some kind of way and not bottled up? Can somebody go in with like a whole mask and a hazmat suit and some way, shape or form pick up the rodents that, you know what I mean? Pick up the rodents that are predisposed to this and kind of take them over to Gene's place. And I'm just conspiracy theorying, just been conspiracy theorists here. I'm sorry. Can they, and move them over some weird way, move them over to Gene in Betsy's house, Betsy, Gene Hackman, and Betsy Arakawa, move them over to that place in some way, the garage or something, and be like, you know, we're just going to leave this here and be like, oh, Betsy, you know, you maybe need to clean some stuff out, or some place that, you know, she goes a lot. Anyways, he ruled out blood pressure problems or any other causes of death besides the injection of air and said it must have happened after the surgeries because the complications occurred while the patients were in recovery. Defense attorney Philip Hayes told the jury that the hospital had issues and that Davis was a scapegoat who was only charged because he was there when the deaths occurred. Prosecutor Chris Gatewood said during closing arguments that Davis liked to kill people, and prosecutor Jacob Putman said the hospital hadn't changed any of its procedures and hadn't had any similar incidents since Davis left. So I say all that to say this, man, you can never close the book on people because people, man, they all right.
But they'll end up getting his share.
Hey, this is Patroniela from Brooklyn. And, you know, death is difficult under the best circumstances, and fractured families, of course, make it worse. But I guess my question is, you're challenging it on the basis of what? At some point, we have to look at what the spirit of the will was rather than what the actual law is, right?
No, you look at the actual law. In fact, in wills, when you look at probate, it actually, what really matters is what the will says. And sometimes,
although in this case, what the will says may be the same as the spirit anyway.
It's not, because Gene's kids are getting the money from him that he never wanted to give.
But I would say the spirit of Gene's document, when you read it, is that he didn't want it to go to his kids.
But it's gonna.
But it's going to, unless
it's gonna.
It's automatically going to go to them.
You gonna argue this one with me?
No, not anymore.
All right, so let's get to the article. Gene Hackman's will has been unveiled, and the two-time Oscar winner left every penny of his fortune to his wife, Betsy Arakawa. But there's a big twist, and this is TMZ. This is TMZ via I think Yahoo. I saw it this morning on Yahoo, and I clicked it, and it was like, oh, this is TMZ. Said the Hollywood legend made Betsy his sole beneficiary back in 1995, according to the docs obtained by TMZ. He made this decision a long time ago. There was a strained relationship of some sort of relationship a long time ago. For you to not include your kids in 1995, he left the industry. I think he said for good in 2000 or 2004, somewhere around there. I think he said it was really earlier than I expected. But he left the industry relatively like early, I think at age 74 or something like that. They were saying he left the industry. I mean, he's 74, man. It's legitimately time to hang it up. I mean, you can keep going, but you could also hang it up too. You've done good work, so in 1995, he's much older, he's much wiser, and he said, hey man, I'm gonna go ahead and write my last will and testament. And this has been in place, right? This has been in place for, man, 30 years. Gotta be. This has been in place for 30 years and he hasn't changed it. You can update your beneficiary status, right? There is a reason to update your beneficiary status and say, okay, I want to give this portion, my God, $80 million fortune. Do you want to leave your kids anything? We'll talk more about that in just a second. So what's interesting is that his 3 children, son Christopher and 2 daughters, Leslie and Elizabeth, are not named in the will. It was all supposed to go to Betsy, but the timing of their deaths could change where the money goes. As we told you, early findings indicate Betsy died from hantavirus, a rare disease that can be fatal, while Jean passed away about a week later due to cardiovascular disease. Officials made it clear Hackman was struggling with Alzheimer's disease, which would explain why he never called police about his wife. Betsy's will leaves most of her assets to Jean, but there's a provision which says if they died within 90 days of each other, it would be considered a simultaneous death. And in that case, her will provides all assets would go to charity. And so for somehow, some way, by the luck of the draw, the universe said, somehow, some way, Betsy's got to die first. And you need all the ducks to fall in line. And she did. Die by mysterious death? Check. Die first. Check. Let's continue. New Mexico is a community property state, so assuming there's no prenup, Betsy's estate could have a lot of money and her share would go to charity. As for Jean's estate, despite the fact that he did not include his children in his will, they would presumably get his share since they are the most direct living heirs. Andrew M. Katzenstein, a prominent California trust and estate attorney, has reportedly been hired by Jean's son, Chris, who's the oldest sibling, indicating he may challenge the will. So, Chris, I ain't heard nothing from you, buddy. I haven't. I'm saying I haven't. I haven't heard anything from Chris. But Chris is tapped in enough to know I need to get an estate trust and estate attorney so we can see what dad has. You haven't called your dad in a while. You know what I mean? Like, you can call to check in on your dad, say what's up. Doesn't mean anything. Could just be busy. Maybe you don't have that kind of relationship. Not saying you don't love your dad. I'm just saying this comes out and all of a sudden you get a trust and estate attorney. I'm wondering if your sisters have done the same as well. Because immediately we're worried about the money. Immediately. Hackman discussed his difficult relationship with his children over the years, admitting he wasn't around much during Chris's formative years. He had gotten closer to his kids in more recent years. Julia Peters, a representative for the estate of Hackman in Arakawa, has also filed paperwork asking the court to grant a preliminary injunction preventing authorities from releasing any photo or video evidence of the death scene, officer body cam footage, for example, citing Jean and Betsy's right to privacy. As you know, Hackman and Arakawa were found dead in their home last month, and officials say they believe their bodies had been lying in the house for more than a week. So blah, blah, blah. That's the end of the article. I want to read another one, though, that dives a little bit more into the background of the family. And this one is by Elizabeth Stanton, Fox News. I think saw this a couple weeks ago, something like that, and just downloaded it because I wanted to talk about it. It says Gene Hackman was abandoned by dad, kicked out of acting school before finding Hollywood success. Gene Hackman turned a painful childhood and years of rejection into a successful and legendary Hollywood career. Gene, who died from heart disease with Alzheimer's as a significant contributing factor about 1 week after his wife, Betsy, died from hantavirus, had always had a love and interest in movies, admiring James Cagney, Errol Flynn, and Edward G. Robinson. I love the idea that somebody could convince me that they were a sea captain without being phony. I'd grow up shy, not unusual for actors. They want to show they're more than that, people of import, substance. I think because I was shy, I felt insecure, and acting seemed like a way of maybe getting around that, getting to be somebody, he told Vanity Fair in 2004. Okay, before we move forward, I want to show you another video by E! News. And so let's go.
Gene Hackman's daughter is speaking out following her father's tragic death. Just a day after Gene was found dead in his Santa Fe, New Mexico home, the Oscar-winning actor's daughter, Elizabeth Jean Hackman, is sharing how she believes her father may have died, telling TMZ that she suspects carbon monoxide poisoning may be to blame for the death of the 95-year-old, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and their dog. In an affidavit obtained by E! News February 27th, Detective Roy Arden of the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office states that authorities were called to Gene's home around 1:40 p.m. on February 26th, after a neighbor called requesting a welfare check. Upon arrival, police noticed that the front door of the house was open, but that there were no signs of forced entry. Once inside the home, 2 bodies were found, which were later identified as Gene and Betsy, along with their dog. The docs go on to state that an investigation regarding the couple's death is warranted, saying, "At this time, the manner and cause of death pertaining to Eugene Gene Allen Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's passing is unknown." Affiant believes the circumstances surrounding the death of the 2 deceased individuals to be suspicious enough in nature to require a thorough search and investigation because the reporting party found the front door of the residence unsecured and opened, and no obvious signs of a gas leak. However, Santa Fe authorities are confirming to NBC News that, quote, "foul play is not suspected as a factor."
Now, I told you I was concerned about this whole thing because the death records were out. Number one. Number two, Betsy died of hantavirus, and the gas leak was the first thing mentioned by the daughter. Now, I know, as I've been made aware, that gas leaks are odorless. And sometimes, maybe as it's been indicated to me, gas leaks are unassuming. So, you don't know what you're walking into, essentially. Yeah, I get that. And I respect that. For sure. But I something in me believes, and I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. I'm not going to die on that hill, that you would find carbon monoxide in their body. Instead, you don't. And maybe and again, I'm not educated on this part, so please, I'm happy to be educated on this. I would think that you would find the traces of carbon monoxide in both of their bodies. I would think you would. If there was a gas leak, I would think that you would find it in both Gene and Betsy's body. Furthermore, if we're dealing with the hantavirus, I would think that Gene would be going essentially everywhere with Betsy. I don't think there would be a time where Betsy would go one place and leave Gene. If Gene is not sane enough, my grandmother had dementia. We did not leave my grandmother. Like, we didn't travel far. Like, we when we used to watch her, we may have gone to the bathroom, but we would have 2 people, or like, so my uncle might be over there. You know what I mean? My uncle might be over there. And then another family member might go. So 2 people were there at all times, really. And then sometimes if one person was there by themselves, then guess what? That individual, say if they need to go to the restroom, they would like set my grandmother up in place and like kind of just watch her for a little bit, knowing that she's not gonna move and whatnot, and then run to the restroom real quick, or wait till she was like sleep to do everything. Go to the restroom, get lunch, and sit down and just catch a break, because you have to watch her all the time. So it's hard for me to believe that Betsy would have gone out and just like left him alone in the state that he is in for any extended period of time to go, clean the garage or check on something or whatever. I would think that when she's wherever she's going, she has to be exposed to it for some length of time, and it has to be somewhere in the house, I would think, or somewhere close to where he is, for her to have been exposed to that. You see what I'm saying? Because that's a big property. The door was found unsecured. See, that's what I'm saying. Oh, but you might say, and this would be a fair thing to say, you might say that, oh, but no. It could have been that Betsy just came in and forgot to close the door behind her. Or Jean was wandering around, rummaging through things and, just kind of standing there, and he just by mistake, fiddled with the door enough to open it. Perfectly normal. I will not argue with you on that. But I'm just saying there are so many things. And then the Tylenol cold and flu. I haven't seen that it was Tylenol cold and flu that she had, but you can get Tylenol cold and flu over the counter. Said she was at a pharmacy. I would assume that she was at a pharmacy because she started feeling bad and she knew she was feeling bad. And if she's responsible enough to be taking care of him, then I think that she would be responsible enough to understand her health. Now, I understand that, and it's also been made aware that, and I'm not going to argue this point either. It helps me understand a little bit more. Sometimes caretakers die before the person they're taking care of because of all the stress and everything that, they're under. Okay, that's fine. But do they die from neglect of themselves, right? Or is it just the stress? Because that's just a different thing. Of course, you could argue, and we will argue, or of course you can argue that, hey, sometimes you do neglect yourself, because you're pouring so much into this person, and so you neglect yourself so much, and there's stress that compounds, and then so eventually you sort of succumb to those mental illnesses or mental stressors. I'll call it that. Those mental stressors. Very possible. Won't argue against that. But I don't think that would stop Betsy from taking care of herself in a way that I would go to my doctor. Hey, doc, I'm feeling a little bit of the flu. I'm going to go get Tylenol cold and flu or what have you. I'm going to go to my doctor. Maybe I'm sort of hyper vigilant in that, and I'll go get something from the pharmacy. Something she was trying to do from the pharmacy or get from the pharmacy. None of that, that I understand, was found in her body. It was just simply the hantavirus alone. If we get the autopsy report back and we see, some of this stuff was found in her bowels or something like that, or her fecal matter or something like that. If we get any of that, then it's like, okay, that makes sense. I just need that explanation to come through. Otherwise, I'm a bit confused. Let's continue. Gene Hackman had a lifelong interest in acting, fueled by his father's abandoning the family when he was 13. You might understand that at some point in time, this kind of behavior is generationally impacting. The father leaves, and Gene probably grows up and says, I never want to do this to my kids. I never want to leave my kids abandoned. But then he ends up actually doing it. He ends up actually doing the very thing that he said he didn't want to do. I end up abandoning my kids. So, born January 30th, 1930, Gene was raised in Danville, Illinois by his mother, Anna. When Green was 13, his father left the family and an event that influenced his pursuit of acting. It was a real adios, he told Vanity Fair. It was so precise. Maybe that's why I became an actor. I doubt I would have become so sensitive to human behavior if that hadn't happened to me as a child, if I hadn't realized how much one small gesture can mean. During a 2001 appearance on Inside the Actor's Studio, Gene recounted the last time he saw his father, becoming emotional as he spoke. I was down the street playing with some guys and he drove by and kind of waved, Gene said before trailing off and looking visibly teary-eyed. That's crazy. Golly. After Lipton asked whether he had been close to his mother. Gene stayed quiet before clearing his throat and apologizing. It's only been 65 years or so, he said with a laugh, breaking the tension, though still looking slightly uncomfortable. Lipton noted, "It's not something that goes away easily, is it?" To which Gene replied, "It probably makes you a better actor. I don't know." So causes of distress in the home life. You remember, I think his name, River Phoenix, who kind of talked about in the same way or the same manner, his troubles at home and how his troubles at home. And, he didn't really speak negatively about his mom that I remember or what she provided, but he essentially sort of did seem to indicate or insinuate that there were parts of home life that he didn't like. And he felt unheard in some way, shape, or form. And again, it wasn't an attack toward his mother or anybody at home. It was just, I feel unheard. Me as a person, this is how I am. I'm just going through some things that I don't know how to work out, and I don't feel like there's anybody there for me to help me work through some of these issues, because sometimes as people, it's not really attached to anyone. You just go through some things. You're trying to figure out the world and you don't understand the world, and you're just going through something, and, you hide it really well, or people are, so caught up in their stuff that they really don't understand how to help you. They don't really have a lot of time to stop and say, help me help you extensively. They don't have time to stop and be your therapist. They just have time for you to say, tell me what it is so I can fix it. And that doesn't work. So anyways, it's not something that goes away. He says, I don't advocate for that. He added, explaining, you get in touch with your feelings, and that's what we're here for. I think the more you can draw on this kind of thing and get something out of it. So I'll stop here for a short break. I have another video that I want to show you.
Suspicion surrounds the deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife, whose bodies were found in their Santa Fe home. No one had seen the couple for days, and authorities say they had been dead for some time. The sheriff now says they are not ruling out foul play. Jim Murray with the 911 call that alerted police to the deaths.
Mystery surrounds the shocking death of actor Gene Hackman and his wife. The 95-year-old legend and his wife Betsy were found dead in their sprawling estate in Santa Fe. Initial reports said no foul play was suspected, and there was speculation that they were killed by carbon monoxide poisoning. But now, in a jaw-dropping turn of events, their deaths are being called suspicious enough in nature to require a thorough search and investigation. According to this search warrant, 2 maintenance workers reported finding their bodies.
I think we just found one deceased person inside a house.
Are they moving at all?
No, dude, they're not moving. Just send somebody out here really quick.
The workers discovered the front door of the residence open. Hackman's body was found near the kitchen area. A deputy stated he suspected the male individual had suddenly fallen. His wife, Betsy Arakawa, was found on the bathroom floor. A prescription bottle appeared open with pills scattered on the countertop.
In no way is it adding up to me, and this is why. I've handled thousands of death investigations over the course of my career, and it is such a rarity, an anomaly, to have 2 people fall over dead at one time without some major causal effect.
Gene and his wife were dog lovers. Their German Shepherd was also discovered dead, but 2 other dogs were found roaming the property.
I find it interesting that the canine is found allegedly in a closet. Right now, the information that's coming out is so murky.
Gene and his wife's bodies showed signs of decomposition and mummification.
This is an investigation, so we're keeping everything on the table. I think the autopsy is going to tell us a lot.
The 2-time Oscar winner was known for iconic roles in more than 80 films, including The French Connection.
Lex Luthor.
He also played Lex Luthor in the original Superman movies. Later generations came to know him as the vivacious patriarch in the Royal Tenenbaums. This was his last appearance at an award show in 2003 at the Golden Globes, when he received a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Top of the world, Ma. Top of the world. He was an extraordinary actor. He was somebody who was good at drama, who was believable in action films, and he could also do comedy. He was really funny and Get Shorty. So his range was really vast, which is kind of impressive because he just looked like an everyman.
Hackman retired from acting in 2009, citing health issues. Last year, he was spotted walking, looking frail in a rare public outing with his wife outside a restaurant in New Mexico, walking with a cane and clutching her arm for support. Today, as Oscar preps are underway for Sunday's show, Hollywood is in mourning for the star's death. Gwyneth Paltrow posted this photo with Hackman from the Royal Tenenbaums with a heartbroken emoji.
After the bodies were discovered, the New Mexico gas company tested all the lines in and around the home and did not find any problems.
Okay, let's continue. Gene did credit his mother as an individual who recognized something in him, encouraging him to pursue acting. As he just said, top of the world, ma. Speaking with GQ in 2011, the Bonnie and Clyde star confirmed a story that she once took him to the movie theater and told him she wanted to see you do that someday. She did say that. I would have been 10. Things parents say to children are oftentimes not heard, but in some cases you pick up on things that your parent would like to see you have done. And so this is important because when we think about, he added, unfortunately, mom never saw me act, so I'm sorry for that, but that's the way it is. Of course. And that's extremely unfortunate. But when we talk about sort of the psychology of the caretaker and how the interaction or how kids respond to their environment based on the caretaker, it's highly important that the caretaker is there to sort of encourage the child to I guess I would call like good works or productive works. Because children really take after that. They don't know it, but children, it's extremely vital. Children don't know, but they're getting all of their information and their view of the world and their entire source of life from you. Even if you and the child have a love-hate relationship, or you and the child have a hate relationship, you guys don't like each other, you've grown estranged, they get their view of the world from you. Things that they do, things that they say, even though they try to distance themselves from you and be different, they can't. And they don't know why, but they can't be different because their entire world is shaped and molded by your mannerisms as a parent and your habits. So even though they try to do something different, it's always going to be, them. And so he had an interaction with his dad. He had interactions with his mom, obviously. And so there was a shaping of his mom that sort of motivated him to be the best that he could be. But on the other hand, the dark side of that would be that he was also motivated by his father, which estranged him a little bit from his children. And that's what I was wondering. When we think about if you think about your time working in insurance and things of that nature, and after death benefits, and things of that nature, who they go to and for what reason, and the fights that ensue over those benefits, the reasons are so vast as to why there are certain fights, why lawyers come out of the woodwork, why family come out of the woodwork. That's because whatever unhealed trauma that you have plays into motivations for why you do certain things. For Gene, it was, I want to make my mama proud. I want to get there as quick as possible. But possibly for Gene's kids, it could be the case because they are estranged. Dad never gave me nothing in life. I mean, maybe dad was okay to his daughters, but he could have been better. Maybe dad was terrible to his son, and so dad owes me. Man, I remember, I don't know if you guys know him. You probably don't. But there's this gospel singer named Kurt Franklin. And I think maybe a year or two ago, he was really going through it with his son. And they were arguing and they were fighting on social media. I think there were times that Kurt, he said that they had gotten fights. And he kind of he was like, man, I'm going to have to, just give it to God because I'm kind of through with him at this point. And he was like, can you imagine a father saying that he's through with his child? And Kurt was like, man, I've given him all the love and everything that he's gotten from me. But the son was essentially like, yeah, you gave this to me, but look at how you treated me all my life, and so on and so forth. So the relationship is extremely strained. And that's what his son chooses to focus on. Not the things that his dad has given. I'm not telling him how to act, but not the things that his dad has given him, but on the trauma that his dad has caused him. Why is that? When we think about something like, say, loss aversion, when we think about that in terms of behavioral economics, psychology, really, oftentimes people feel a loss significantly greater than a win. Say you're playing in the stock market and you win a bet of $10. You know what I mean? Or let's take it to the next level. You bet and you win $1 million. That's great, but you experience that the research shows that you experience that elation or that high for just a little bit, as compared to if you lose $100, $100,000. You might feel, and I'm just throwing numbers out there just to show a point. You would feel the loss of that $100 for a longer amount of time than the uptick of $1 million. It's like, why is that? Because when I win, there's nothing to think about. I did everything right. I feel great about what I did. I know what I did right. And so my brain is like, you did it just like we expected. But when I lose, I don't know what I did wrong. I hate that I did that. I don't know why I made that decision. I start getting in my head about, why would I make that decision? How could that happen? Does this, lead to is this going to be the start of a losing streak? Is this going to get worse? Is this a one-time deal? Am I who I really say I am? Am I who I think I am? And you essentially start spiraling because of that loss. And so loss aversion, you feel more, and that plays into trauma, because even though my mom, speaking in terms of Jean, even though my mom told me you can be anything you want, I hope to see you one day. And I'm winning awards for it. People love me. I have a beautiful wife. I have beautiful kids. That nagging thing about my father coming by and just waving at me. What did I do wrong? He didn't say anything. And so I feel the pain of that loss more. Instead of being able to get myself back in that space of, that's his problem, not mine. Because you can take yourself out of that space and say, well, that's his problem, not mine. Because as far as I'm aware, I'm a child. I didn't do anything that I know of. And if I did do something, then it's his responsibility to come and talk to me and say, son, I didn't like what you did. Or son, I'm not ready to own up to certain things. I need to go. That's his job. That's his responsibility. I'm not taking the blame for that. But essentially what you do is you end up taking the blame for something that you didn't do. And you put that out into the world and you say, man, what did I do wrong that's causing this? And so Gene takes from his father that abandonment, and it trickles down into apparently Chris. And so we see the breaking of these issues where Chris is not really around like that. And possibly the daughters aren't really around like that, just because I love dad. But, dad's got some ways about him. We're here for you, dad. We support you, dad. But you know how dad is, and Chris is like, yeah, man, you guys didn't really get it like I was. I was the first child. So, dad, all the mistakes that were made, dad made them on me, and I never recovered from that. And so now he's jumping back in the picture like, man, I want the money. Okay, give me the money. Hackman shared that his mother never saw any of his acting roles, likely like his early supporting role in 1967's Bonnie and Clyde. Gene Hackman's nephew addresses actor's death theories report. Gene's mother died in a fire lit by a burning cigarette, according to Los Angeles Times profile on the actor. He also said he had buried the hatchet before his father died. In his GQ interview, he shared that he wished his mother could have seen his performance in I Never Sang for My Father, a 1970 drama about a professor dealing with his aging father, which earned him his first Oscar nomination in the Best Supporting Actor category. Absolutely, because he knows what it's like. I thought it was a sensitive picture about family and relationships, and I think she would have been proud and happy to see that, he said. You're fortunate sometimes to be able to do something in life that defines who you are and who your parents may have wanted you to be. This is extremely similar, and I'm thinking of River Phoenix, because he kind of did the same thing. Prior to making it big, Gene had enrolled in the Pasadena Playhouse in California, where he befriended another aspiring actor, Dustin Hoffman. He says, I met Gene in acting school at the Pasadena Playhouse when he was 27 and I was 19. We used to play congas together on the roof, trying to be like our hero, Marlon Brando. Hoffman told Fox News Digital after Gene's death, and Gene was like Brando in that he brought something unprecedented to our craft, something people didn't immediately understand as genius. He was expelled from our school after 3 months for not having talent. It was the first time they ever did that. He was that good. Hoffman continued, powerful, subtle, brilliant, a giant among actors. I miss him already. Both actors were voted least likely to succeed at Playhouse. Okay, let me show you something else.
Deaths of Gene Hackman and his second wife, Betsy Arakawa, all eyes are on Hackman's 3 adult children, as more mysterious details emerge about the scene in New Mexico involving pills, Betsy's mummified corpse, and one of the couple's 3 dogs dead. Gene Hackman had 3 children with his first wife, Faye Maltese. Their marriage of 30 years fell apart just as Gene's movie career soared. The couple divorced in 1986, and his relationship with his kids struggled. Faye passed away in 2017. Their youngest daughter, Leslie Ann Hackman, age 58, now admits that she hadn't talked to her dad and stepmom in a couple months before their bodies were found on February 26th and had been dead for days or possibly weeks. Leslie lives in California, hundreds of miles away from the couple's multi-million-dollar home in Santa Fe, but she claimed they were very close. Leslie also told the Daily Mail that her 95-year-old father was in very good physical condition, doing yoga and Pilates several times a week, and to her knowledge, he was in good health and hadn't undergone any major surgeries in the past few months. Leslie described Gene and Betsy's marriage as wonderful and gave her 63-year-old stepmom credit for, quote, keeping him alive. Hackman's friend, Doug Lanham, echoed the sentiment, telling TMZ that Betsy kept Gene on a strict diet. She monitored his eating habits closely, often having him order healthy choices such as halibut or rice paper salmon, although Gene would allegedly try to sneak a cheat meal whenever he hung out with Doug. Concerns over his heart health were actually what pushed the legendary actor to retire from show business in 2004 at the age of 74. The Hackman family is now processing the grief and awaiting updates on the official causes of death. Leslie and her older sister Elizabeth Jean Hackman, age 63, the same age as her late stepmother, initially speculated that the couple died from carbon monoxide poisoning, but police say there was no obvious sign of a leak, and the gas company is investigating. Gene and Betsy's autopsies and toxicology reports are pending. As for the police report, it painted a chilling scene at the house. The Hackman's front door was found unsecured and open. An orange pill bottle and pills were scattered on the floor, and the couple's other 2 dogs were alive and running loose in the house. Betsy's body was described as mummified and bloated. In a February,
kind of almost to insinuate that she tried to go for the pills, but where is the Tylenol? You know what I mean? She was going for the pills and not the Tylenol. So I went and got some. There's a cognitive deliberation there. I'm going for these pills because I need something stronger. This is what I'm saying. This is just me thinking out loud. I'm going for these pills because I need something stronger to sort of take care or get at whatever's going on in my body right now that I don't understand. So I'm going to go for these pills instead of the cold and flu because the cold and flu ain't doing nothing for me. So maybe she walked in and knew something was wrong. It was like, man, all right, babe, hold on. I really just need, I'm feeling flushed. I really just need to get upstairs right now and get my stuff. But if it's that big of a deal to you and you're that sick, would you be up and out and about? Like they said they just came from a walk. Because if you're that sick, number one, would you be out and about walking around like that? That's number one. Number two, because they said, I think because he had sunglasses on or something like that. They found him, he had sunglasses on, or sunglasses just a little bit ways away from him. Maybe they were out for a walk, I think one report said. If she was sick like that, to that degree, wouldn't she be laid up in bed? if she was that sick that day, when to where she could barely make it to the counter to get her stuff upstairs, first of all, wouldn't she have it on her person? No, she went out for a walk, and so she wouldn't have it on her. Okay, that's fine. So when I get back home, I'll run upstairs really quickly when she have it downstairs so she can get it quickly, if it's that big of a deal. Because I know when I'm sick, I keep everything close to me. But never mind. Don't have to die on that hill. I'm going to run upstairs and get everything because it's where I keep all my stuff. It's just my comfort place. Helps keep me organized. Okay, cool. I run up there to get it. And I go for the strong stuff. But it's scattered all over the counter and the floor. If she was that sick, I would think that she'd be laid up in bed. Going to my second point. If she was that sick and she knew that she couldn't care for Jean, that would mean she couldn't care for Jean like she knew she needed to, or she wouldn't be up to those standards of caring for Jean like she knew she needed to. And in that respect, with $80 million in your estate, you got some money, you would have probably hired a caretaker to come take over for that, right? I would think so. Again, you don't have to, but if she was that strict on his diet, then I would think that she would say, we need to call somebody in at least to come watch us, even part-time, because when you get to that age, my mother-in-law is a elder care professional, and she watches elderly patients. That's her job. That's her business. Right. And so even if the individual's child is going to be in the home, they know they're going out for work for a couple of hours or something like that. Or maybe if they work from home, they still hire her to come. Or if they're going to be there, they still might hire her or one of her associates for just a couple of hours to come and just sit and watch. You know what I mean? That's what I'm pulling off of, to just come sit and watch and help me keep an eye on my parent while I move around and just get some rest so I can just take a nap. You see what I'm saying? So I can take a nap, so I can, go to the restroom, so I can take a shower, so I can go out and run some errands, just so I can get a break. That's it. But being in that state and she would not call for help, and okay, whatever.
February 27th press release.
I previously thought, I'll just say this, I previously thought that the other two dogs, because, somebody had mentioned, well, dog died, the one that was dead died from, grief and such as that. And starvation. I think one report said starvation and dehydration. But the other two dogs were running around, not laying in a corner, ducked off in a corner, hoping that somebody would, limping, hoping that somebody would come and save them and feed them. Healthy is what the reports are saying. Those other two dogs were healthy, not dying from starvation or dehydration after a couple weeks of going unfed. How is that possible? Feeling good, looking good. How is that possible?
Release, the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office confirmed that there were no apparent signs of foul play, no sign of forced entry or theft, nor was there any sign of external trauma to either of the deceased. While Hackman seemed to be close with his daughters, so far there has been no public word from Jean's son, Christopher Hackman, age 65. There was an apparent rift between the actor and his eldest kid, dating back to the first marriage ending in the 80s. In 1989, just a few years after Jean and Faye divorced, he confessed to the New York Times Magazine that it was temptations of money and recognition that made it difficult to turn down movie roles that ultimately took him away from his family for long stretches. Then in 2011, Jean told GQ, "I lost touch with my son in terms of advice early on. Maybe it had to do with being gone so much. doing location films when he was at an age when he needed support and guidance. It was very tough for me to be gone for 3 months and then come home and start bossing him around. Elizabeth, Leslie, and Hackman's granddaughter, Annie, released a statement confirming his passing, telling the Post, "It is with great sadness that we announce the passing of our father, Gene Hackman, and his wife, Betsy. He was loved and admired by millions around the world for his brilliant acting career. But to us, he was always just Dad and Grandpa. We will miss him sorely and are devastated by the loss."
Let me say this about the relationship with a son and his mother, especially with regard to the feeling of a son feeling like the father is mistreating the mother in some kind of way. Sons, even from a very young age, will get very defensive over their mothers. Not all the time, but sometimes it's possible that they could get defensive over their mothers if they perceive an injustice from the father. Let me give you an example. You could be in a car riding along as a son in the back seat, and all of a sudden you hear your parents start arguing or going back and forth, and you've been quiet for so long, but you get up in age, and you got a little, you got a little weight on you now. You know what I mean? Maybe you can take that, and that's just a rite of passage. It's just the thinking of a son. I want to be the head honcho or whatever, or I think I can take dad a little bit. Stupid. It's dumb, unnecessary ego stuff. It's just dumb. But you hear dad one day talking to mom in a way that you don't like. Maybe you don't understand the full situation or the full scope of what mom and dad are going through. You don't understand that. You're not in the back room when the conversations and the big issues are being raised. But all you know is, I don't like you talking to mama like that. And so you speak up and you say, don't talk to my mama like that. And things get tense because dad is like, stay out of my business, boy. And you're like, no, don't talk to my mama like that. And in this specific case, for Chris, if dad leaves, you never care. I never seen you here. It's just been me and mom. I've been the man of the house. You never cared about me and mom in the first place. You're probably out here with all these other women, and then Betsy shows up. Now Betsy showed up, I think several years later. Let me see, because I can't remember. Somewhere like, I feel like it was like 86. Gene Hackman is what I feel like. Looking for the marriage part, Faye Maltese to 86. Okay, so he divorced Faye in 1986 and married Betsy in 1991. I don't know when he met Betsy. And it's possible that there were some other women that he entertained prior to Betsy or something like that. I don't know that. I'm just talking. And even if he didn't, you're out here doing God knows what. You know what the life is for an actor and all such as this. And from how I see it, just the fact that you're not here, you're mistreating my mama. And so I got a problem with you based off of that. And it could be nothing. It could be absolutely nothing. But, Chris feels like dad is mistreating mom. And so from that, Chris becomes very protective. Whatever dad says, Chris is not going to listen. And so that brings about something that Chris wants to get back at dad over. So let's continue. And let me say this before I move on. These little things like, oh, nobody broke in, or, there was no compromising of the house. Yeah, because the individual just has to walk in. This would be a trusted individual. Absolutely. See what I'm saying? So Gene Hackman and wife were joined at the hip, trained to fly together. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They're joined at the hip. They're joined at the hip. She would not go anywhere. So that makes me believe that whatever she got, he should have. We're joined at the hip. If I have hantavirus, he should also be exposed to hantavirus. How does it work? You know what I mean? Like, do you inhale it and get sick or not? Oh, but it's not 100%. Fair enough. I won't fight you on that. I think the highest I ever got was a 1.4 GPA, Gene said in a 1984 interview with KCRA3, noting he had nothing against the Pasadena Playhouse, just that it's tough to grade actors. Gene and Hoffman eventually moved to New York, where they also hung out with Robert Duvall, and the trio spent years working jobs and looking for acting work. Gene worked as a shoe salesman, a furniture mover, and a doorman, where he ran into one of his former Marine officers who muttered, "Hackman, you're a sorry son of a bee," as he recalled to Vanity Fair. Hey, the stuff that people say to people, hey, man, don't talk to me like that. Don't disrespect me to my face like that, man. I'm out here working. I'm doing what I can. You know what I mean? Gene had joined the Marines at 16, lying about his age to enlist. Oh, yeah. That trauma at 16. Come on. At a very young age to enlist and serve just under 5 years before being discharged in 1951. Speaking with Hoffman and Duvall in the interview, the conversation star described the grind of auditioning. I don't know why I said auditioning. No one starts at the top in theater, and the bottom is a very ugly place, he told the outlet. It was madness, Gene said of open calls. Cattle call, they called it. A lot of people would get physical about where they were in line and who had to go to work. So let me in front of you so I can get the heck out of here. He once auditioned for Gene Kelly for a musical he was directing, which didn't go well. After Gene sang, Kelly approached him and said, "Nice try. Musicals are hard." The rejection and struggle fueled Gene's desire to continue acting, if for no other reason than to prove doubters wrong. Exactly. That is coming from the rejection of my father. That's what I was looking for. It's coming from the rejection of my father. And therefore, in some way, shape, or form, I'm expecting, whether we see it or not, for Chris to try to prove his father wrong. That's got to come up somewhere. Gene Hackman's co-star, Gary Sinise, says the star was living a quiet life outside of Hollywood before mysterious death. As he said to Vanity Fair, it was more psychological warfare because it wasn't going, as he said to Vanity Fair, it was more psychological warfare because I wasn't going to let those efforts get me down. I insisted with myself that I would continue to do whatever it took to get a job. It was like me against them. And in some way, unfortunately, I still feel that way. Exactly. Because it never goes away unless you deal with it. That's that trauma. But I think if you're really interested in acting, there's a part of you that relishes in the struggle. It's a narcotic in that way that you are trained to do this work and nobody will let you do it. So you're a little bit nuts. You lie to people, you cheat, you do whatever it takes to get an audition, get a job, he continued. Ooh. You're a little bit nuts. You lie, you cheat. You do whatever it takes to get an audition, get a job, he continued. Consistency. I love that about Gene because he told you that I would cheat. I told you how I do my thing. I told you, do anything I want to get ahead, and my motivations are a bit superficial. I took some acting roles because of fame and money. A little bit superficial. The people that are watching you, the family, might see right through that, and they might not like it. They don't agree. There's an all-out knockdown, drag-out fight over that. Or you're going to leave me for some money? That what you're going to do? Yeah, man, I got to get it while I can. And then when I go where I'm at, those little things that you don't think people can see, they see them about you. Sometimes it ticks people off. Oh, so you just going to walk out on me, huh? And you're going to walk out and then like everything's good. Yeah, mom and Gene divorced, but like everything's good. You're going to just go marry the next person and parade her in front of the world like everything's fine. We haven't healed from 5 years ago. What you did to us. Maybe mom has, but certainly not me. And even though mothers would try to tell children, it's okay, I'm fine, the children still feel the hurt and the pain from the injustice that they think transpired or what they know transpired. And so I'm seeing my dad lie, cheat, and do whatever he can to get something. Because if you're going to lie and cheat and do whatever you can in front of these people, you're probably going to do it to your family. That's a trait that's going to probably be pretty consistent. You did that to get into the military. So you are aware now that that's what works. I'm not saying he's a terrible guy or he's dishonest or he's just, he's a bad guy all around. I'm not trying to change your perception in that way. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying what you might start to see is that there's a little bit of underhandedness to some of the things that he does. Just a little bit, just like, Gene did that and I'm not sure how I feel about that. That kind of deal. After years of work, Gene landed his breakout role as Jimmy Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, winning his first Oscar for Best Actor. He went on to fill even more memorable roles like the villainous Lex Luthor in Superman and basketball coach Norman Dale in the Hoosiers, and picked up a second Oscar as Best Supporting Actor in Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven. In 2004, after decades of work, Gene appeared in his final film, Welcome to Mooseport, co-starring Ray Romano. In 2008, in a 2008 interview with Reuters, Gene later confirmed he was done acting. I haven't held a press conference to announce retirement, but yes, I'm not going to act any longer, he told the outlet. I've been told not to say that over the last few years in case some real wonderful parts come up. But I really don't want to do it any longer. Speaking to GQ about his legacy in 2011, Gene said he wanted to be remembered as a decent actor, someone who tried to portray what was given to them in an honest fashion. He finishes the story up by saying, I don't know beyond that. So one more video and I'll kind of close this out.
Let's get to the news now. On Gene Hackman's estimated $80 million fortune, are his 3 children gearing up for a fight after being cut out of his will?
Family's everything.
You've got 2 spouses who essentially are leaving everything to the other. However, they both have passed away. Now it's open to interpretation and lawyering. There's going to be litigation that's going to be extensive.
Gene may have been estranged from each of his kids at some point. His 2 daughters, seen in California the day after news of his death broke, told ET they were devastated by the loss. Meanwhile, brother Christopher is working with a prominent lawyer.
I unfortunately was off doing what I thought was important work, early on when my kids really needed me.
The fact that he had advanced Alzheimer's is important. Maybe Gene Hackman, when he signed it, wasn't of sound mind. There may be a lot of different ways potentially to challenge the will. A final resolution, that could be years.
Do they appear to be awake or alert? No.
The administrator of
He was 65 at the time when he signed it.
Hackman's estate just filed these documents requesting photos, video, and body cam footage from the scene be blocked from release. We know Betsy died from a virus spread by rodents. Gene passed away around 7 days later. With his wife gone, it appears he wasn't able to completely care for himself. The coroner's report revealing his stomach was empty. The timing of who died first is important.
Betsy's will says that if Gene is alive, her property assets go to him. Gene survived her by about a week. However, in Betsy's will, it says, in order to survive me, it has to be longer than 90 days. Thus, everything's going to go to charity.
Because why does it have to be longer than 90 days? Why would she put that clause in there, but he didn't? You see what I'm saying? It's very weird that they were kind of on the same page on, like, just in general, what we want to do. She was very careful to say, if I die first, or if I die first and then Gene dies, or maybe, and I might be getting this mixed up if I understand it, just correct me or something like that. In some way, shape, or form, my mom's going to get the money. If my mom's dead, if I die, Gene dies, my mom's going to get the money. And if the money doesn't go to Gene, my mom's going to get the money. If my mom dies, it's going to charity, some sort. But if Gene is survived, if I'm survived by Gene, then the money goes to Gene. And then from there, it goes to whatever. And then for Gene, it was vice versa. If I die, it goes to my wife. And then if my wife, I think that's what it was. Gene is saying, if I die, it goes to my wife. And then Betsy is like, okay, if I have it and Jean is dead, then it's going to my mom. If my mom is dead, then it's going to charity. Okay, I get the line now. But on vice versa, if Betsy dies, no, then it goes to Jean. And then if Jean is dead, then Jean didn't put a clause in place. It's up in the air. It's always frustrating when people write wills like this that leave things up in the air. This is really the purpose of why you get a will, why you have a last will and testament written up, so that you can avoid these up in the air moments to where people are confused. And yet again, even though we have a last will and testament, this is what happens, right? And so now it's funny that, to me, that Chris is like, Dad, me and you are estranged. We really don't talk much, you know, but let's see what this money's talking about though. You know, and the daughters are like, man, I haven't talked to my dad in a couple months. And they're not really they haven't really discussed, as we've seen in the news, going for any money. So I guess where I'm at is I'm just interested to watch everything unfold and play out, because I knew money was going to come up. I knew it. I didn't know if it was going to come up in terms of insurance money, if somebody had a policy taken out on he or Betsy. But I'm interested to see how the rest of this unfolds. Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think. And until next video, take care of yourself. Have a great weekend and take it easy.